How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Ayin Ches, Daf 78 of Masechta BavaBasra. Friends, okay. We're going to start on Daf Ayin Ches, Amud Aleph at the Mishnah. Let's learn once again in the merit of our brothers and sisters who recently were murdered. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Amoches Achomer, somebody who sells a donkey. Lo mocher Caleb. So okay. Noch Mamadi Omer mocher Caleb. Rebuta Omer Paim mechurin, paim ein mechurin. Ketzra Yechomer lefanav v'Chaleb olav v'Omer lemechoy lechamorcha ze arei Chaleb mechurin chamorcha hu ein Caleb mechurin. All right. So the question is, okay. So obviously we've been talking about for a long time already, right? Since the end of Chezkas Abatim. When did Chezkas Abatim end? It ended. Was it Samach? Right, Samach Aleph. Right. So what are we up to? Ayin Ches now. So almost 2.5 weeks now. We're talking about Mochers Abayis and Mochers Asvina. If you sell this, what's included, what's not included. So now we're talking about about selling donkeys. All right. You sell a donkey. When's the last time somebody at Babylon Talmud sold a donkey? Anybody at Babylon Talmud have a donkey? Hamocher is a chomer, somebody who sells a donkey. Lo mocher kelev, so it excludes the vessels. Now, the Gemara is going to talk about which vessels are we talking about. Nocham Hamari Omer says Nocham Hamari mocher kelev, it includes the vessels. Rabbi Omer says Rabbi paimim mechurin, paimim einen mechurin, sometimes it includes the vessels. Sometimes it excludes the vessels. Ketzad, how so? Well, if you have a donkey, and who is the donkey in Winnie the Pooh? Is that Eeyore? Eeyore, right? He was like an upbeat kind of fellow, right? Eeyore. So v'chelev olav. So if you have Eeyore, and Eeyore has his vessels, V'amarlo, and you say, Mechor li chamor chazeh, sell me this donkey, harei keleb mechurin, so it means sell me Eeyore along with his vessels. Was there somebody who signed up for Groove today named Eeyore? Maybe. Let me check. What was his name? Igor. I guess. What does YGOR spell? Igor? Okay. Welcome. Anyways, but I think Winnie the Pooh is Eeyore, right? Unless I'm just totally wrong. So he buys Eeyore together with his vessels. Chamorcha hu Ein Kelev Mechun. But if he says Chamorcha hu, then it excludes the vessels, and the Gemara is going to get into a little bit what's the difference between Chamorcha zeh and Chamorcha hu. Okay. Now we need to discuss what are these vessels. What's the machlokas between Tanakama and Nocham Hamari? What's Rabbi Yehuda talking about? What are these vessels? All right, so we got to figure this out. Amar Ula says Ula. Machloikes besak v'diskayo v'chumni. That the machloikes between the Tanakama and Nocham Hamari. We're not up to Rabbi Yehuda yet. The machloikes between the Tanakama, who says that the vessels are excluded, and Nocham Hamari, who says that the vessels are included. The shaila is with regards to besak, a sack, v'diskaya, a saddle bag, v'chumni, and a side saddle. It's interesting. You have the sack, and then you have the saddle bag, and then you have the side saddle. It's like the saddle bag is like the step in between. You have the sack, which is like a bag. Then you have a saddle bag, so kind of the sack bag connection, and then you have a side saddle, so the side saddle connection. So it's like sack, bag, saddle, saddle. You get what I'm saying? So the machlokes is regard to the sack what was it? This guy again? Saddlebags and a side saddle. All right, the Tanakama says stam chomer lirkov koi. The Tanakama says that that by default a donkey is for riding. V'nochmamari sover, Nochmamari holds that stam chomer lemasoi, that by default a donkey is a beast of burden. I think that means that it's for like carrying stuff, to schlep stuff. Koi. Aval ukif, but a saddle, umardas, and a blanket, I guess that goes under the saddle. Kilkli was a girth, maybe? What's a girth? A girth is like it's like a boik, right? It's like a nice big Hasidic girth, right? I think. Kilkli and kilkli is a breast strap. These are all things that have to do with riding a donkey. So there's basically two categories of vessels. You got vessels that are strictly related to riding the donkey, the saddle, the blanket, the girth, the breast strap. These are all riding related vessels. And then you have then you have vessels that are related to schlepping. Okay? And the thing is, that's in addition to the riding stuff. So a donkey that's for schlepping, in addition to all the riding vessels, it also has the sack, the saddlebag, and the side saddle. So that's an important distinction, right? So according to the Tanakama, the default task, I guess, use of a donkey is for riding, according to the Tanakama. So it only includes the riding related vessels, not the schlepping related vessels. According to Nocham Hamadi, the primary use of a donkey is for schlepping, and therefore, in addition to the riding related vessels, the sale would oichet include the schlepping related vessels, like the sack, the saddlebags, and the side saddle. All right. So again, Omar Ula says Ula. Machloikes besak v'diskaya v'kumni, that be'etzem the machloikes between the Tanakama and Nocham Hamadi is with regard to the schlepping vessels. Are the schlepping vessels included in the sale, or are the schlepping vessels excluded from the sale? The Tanakama is Savar Stam Chomer Lirkov Koi. The Tanakama holds that by default a donkey is for riding, so the schlepping vessels are excluded. Whereas Nocham Hamadi holds that by default a donkey is for schlepping, and therefore, in addition to the riding vessels, oichit, the schlepping vessels would be included. But the riding related vessels, everybody would agree, even the Tanakam would agree, that would be included. Meisvei, we have a kasha. Chomer v'cheilov ani moicher loch. If Shimon says to Ruvain, I am selling you a donkey along with vessels. He specifies, I'm selling you a donkey along with vessels. Hare ze mochers ha'ukif v'samardas v'sakilkali v'sachabik. So he's selling the riding related vessels. Avalo mochers sak v'diskai v'chumni, but he excludes the schlepping related vessels. Uvizman she'omar lo. But if Shimon says to Ruvain, hi v'chom ha'she'oleho, then I'm selling you Eor, together with everything on it, well then everything's included. Even the schlepping vessels are included. Taima de Amrle Chomer v'chelav hu dekani ukif umar da'as. So now the Gemara wants to be medai because Ula says that by default, at least the riding, everyone agrees that by default, at least the riding vessels are included. Yet we have a brisa which is saying that if Shimon specifies, I'm selling you not just a donkey, but oichit the vessels, well, it's only then that the riding vessels are included. Halo amar le'achi lo. But if he did not say that the riding, but if he did not say that the vessels are included in the sale, well, then the implication is that even the riding vessels would be excluded. So by default, nothing is included apparently according to this brisa. He has to specify that he's selling the donkey and the vessels in order to include even just the riding vessels. Lo, adds the Gosabach, no, hu adin de afalgav de lo amar le chomer v'chelav nami ukufumadas mechurin. No. We'll answer to support Ula that by default, the riding related vessels are included by default. Okay, v'kamash malon, and the chiddush of this brisa is, what it's coming to teach us is that falgav de omar le chomer v'chelav, that even though he specified, I'm selling you in addition to the chomer oichit the vessels, still those vessels are limited to riding vessels, not schlepping vessels, like the Chachamim, not like Nachum Hamadi, sak v'diskaya v'chumnei lo koni. The sack, the saddlebags, and the side saddle, i.e. the schlepping vessels, are nonetheless excluded, even though he mentioned Caleb. So it's like the Chachamim, unlike Nachum Hamadi. My kumni, what is this side saddle? Amar Papi bar Shmuel, merkavta dinoshe, a place for the women to ride on. Apparently, the donkeys were more male oriented, and I guess they had a special side saddle if a woman wanted to ride a donkey. Okay. Now, frekt the Gemara. Okay, so we thought that we went into all the details over here with this machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Nachum Hamadi. No. So we saw this machlokes between Tanna Kama and Nachum Hamadi about, is it referring to the riding-oriented vessels or the schlepping-oriented vessels? But there's more. There's more. Are the vessels currently on the donkey, and that's when the machlokes is? Or, right, but everybody would agree that if there's no vessels on the donkey right now, well then nothing's included. Meaning, if we're in a situation where the donkey is all souped up with all sorts of vessels, riding vessels, schlepping vessels, there's a machlokes, what's included in the sale? Just the riding vessels, oichit the schlepping vessels, that's the machlokes. But if there was nothing on the donkey, well then it's just the donkey. That's one possibility. Or do we say that this machlokes is even when there's nothing on the donkey? That even when it's just the donkey, still there's a machlokes between Tanna Kama and Nachum Hamadi. By default, what automatically comes along with the donkey? But if there were vessels on the donkey, then whatever's on the donkey is included. If it's all souped up with schlepping vessels, so those are included too. So that's the shaila. So we just talked about this machlokes between Tanna Kama and Nachum Hamadi about, is it just riding vessels or maybe also schlepping vessels, givaldig. But now what's the context for that machlokes? So frekti gemore ibayu de'asa kasha be'odon olav machlokes. Is this machlokes when the donkey is all vesseled up, and it's vesseled up with riding vessels, schlepping vessels, you name it? And the shaila is, okay, so what's included in the sale? Aval b'she'enon olav. But if there was pashut, nothing on the donkey, modelahu Nachum Hamadi. Nachum Hamadi would admit to the rabbis that be'etzim the schlepping vessels wouldn't be included, but the Rashbam points out, what does the Rashbam say? It's hard to tell you exactly where I am. It's about 8 lines from the bottom of the Rashbam, in like 2 words into a line. It's like hard to find. I'm just going to read it. Right, so the Rashbam points out, but even the riding oriented things, if they're not currently on the donkey, they would be excluded. So meaning, I guess when he said, so I guess when we say that Nachum Mamadi would agree to the Tanakama, that would be in a scenario where the schlepping vessels were not on the donkey, only the riding vessels were. But the point being, I feel like that complicates things. I think it was easier the way I explained it a minute ago, which I think is correct, meaning it's also correct, and it's a little bit easier, I think, which is that the machlokes is when, so if the animal is all souped up with everything, so the question is what's included, and if there's nothing on the animal, then nothing is included. And then, but I guess the way that the Gemara talks about, which is important, would be in a situation where just the riding vessels are on it, but not the schlepping vessels. So in that case, Nachum Mamadi would agree with the Rabbanan that it's just the riding vessels. All right. So again, so Iboilu, that's the kasha. Be'odon olav machloikes. Is this machlokes about what's included? Is it when everything is on the donkey, schlepping vessels, riding vessels, you name it? Aval b'she'enon olav. But I guess the way to explain the Gemara would be, but if the riding vessels are not, but if the schlepping vessels are not on the donkey, only the riding vessels are, well then modeh lehu Nachum Mamadi. Well then Nachum Mamadi would admit to the rabbis that it would only be the riding vessels, not the schlepping vessels. Those would be excluded. And if there was nothing on the donkey, then nothing would be included. O Dilma, or perhaps b'she'enon olav machloikes, that the machlokes is when they are not on the donkey, right? So let's just assume that there's absolutely nothing on the donkey. It's just the donkey alone right now. And still, the rabbis are saying that by default, included in the sale are riding vessels. And Nachum Hamadi says that by default, included in the sale are even schlepping vessels. But if the donkey was loaded with riding vessels and schlepping vessels, well then module Rabbanan l'Nachum. The Rabbanan would agree with Nachum Mamadi that the schlepping vessels would be included. Tashma coming here. Uvizman she'omar lo. Hu v'choma she'olav. Well, in the brayso that we just quoted, it says, right, there's machlokas about what is included. Is it just the riding vessels, maybe the schlepping vessels? But we said, if what he says, if Shimon says to Reuven, I'm selling you not just the donkey, but also everything on it, well then, harekulam mechurin, well then everything is sold. So that taka sounds like we're talking about where everything is currently on the donkey. And we're saying if he just says that, so we're talking about where everything is currently on the donkey. And the brayso says that if Shimon says to Reuven, I'm selling you the donkey and its vessels, well then it's only the riding vessels. And if he says I'm selling you everything, then it even includes the schlepping vessels, and it's the opinion of the rabbis. I understand if we say that the machlokes is when they are on, when the animal is loaded up. Hamani Rabbanani. This is the opinion of the rabbis, that that if he says, I'm selling you my donkey and the vessels, or we said even by default, it would include just the riding vessels. And if he says, I'm selling you everything on it, well then it even includes the schlepping vessels. But if you say that the machlokes is when they are not on, that the machlokes is when nothing is on the animal, but if the animal has all these vessels on it, well then everybody agrees that everything would be included, even the schlepping vessels. Well then this brayso is talking about where the donkey is loaded up with riding vessels and schlepping vessels, right? Because it says that if he says, I'm selling you the donkey and everything on it, meaning it's currently souped up. So we're saying that in that case, we're still saying that the rabbi said that by default, the schlepping vessels are excluded, even though everything is on the animal right now. Now, if you say that the machlokes between Tanakama and Nachum Mamadi is when there's nothing on the animal right now, or when it's not fully loaded up, but if it is fully loaded up, everybody would agree that automatically it even includes the schlepping vessels, well then, who is this brayso like? Well then, Hamani, who's the brayso like? I mean, even the Rabbanan apparently then would agree that the schlepping vessels would be included. So therefore, we want to say that Memele, it must be that the machlokas is dafka when the donkey is all loaded up. So the olam b'she'ein odon olav machlokes. So no, really I'll tell you that the machlokes is when they are not on the donkey. Okay? So even when there's nothing on the donkey, there's still going to be this machlokes. There's still going to be this machlokes. It and everything that is fit to be on it. Or I guess you could probably also say that the machlokas is meaning when we say kshe'ein alav, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing on the donkey. If there was absolutely nothing on the donkey, if you say there's b'she'ein alav machlokas, okay, so if all that's on it is the riding stuff, I guess we're saying that Nachum Amadi would still say that the schlepping stuff is also included. What if there was absolutely nothing on it? I reckon if we say b'she'ein olav machlokas, I imagine even then, afilu achi ukaf u'mardas konam. It says b'she'ein olav machlokas v'afilu achi ukaf u'mardas. Yeah, kona, right. I mean, Rashbam seems to be saying that b'she'ein olav means that there's nothing on it. It's just the donkey right now, and still the riding stuff are included. Okay, fine. Beseder. So we want to say that the machlokas is even when there's absolutely nothing on it, and still there is this machlokas. Well, if that is the case, then wouldn't that mean that when it has the vessels on it, so then, right, if you have the riding vessels and the schlepping vessels, then everything should be included. How could the Chacham be saying that by default that only the riding is included? Well, you could say kol shemasheroi lios olav. So, right, so meaning it could be talking about not where it actually is loaded, right? The Brisa could be talking about where it's not actually loaded up right now. But what the Chacham are saying, not that if he says that I'm selling you the donkey and everything that's on it, but I'm selling you the donkey and everything that is fit to be on it. So then what would be included? So meaning not everything is on it right now. And the Chacham are saying that by default only the riding stuff would be included, not the schlepping stuff. Okay, fine. So you could still say that the machlokes is even when these vessels are not on the donkey. All right. Tashma, come in here. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says Rabbi Yehuda, paimim mechurin, paimim she'einon mechurin. Okay, so now Rabbi Yehuda says that sometimes they are sold and sometimes they are not sold. Okay. So now the assumption is that Rabbi Yehuda is talking about when the vessels are on the donkey. I believe that all of the vessels are on the donkey. So now, where are we? So Tashma Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda paim mechurin, paim she'ein mechurin. So you see, in the Mishnah, the assumption initially is that like Rabbi Yehuda is kind of coming to be kind of in the middle, right? The rabbis say that these vessels are not included. Nachum Amadi says the vessels are included. Rabbi Yehuda is like kind of saying, well, sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But ultimately, I think Rabbi Yehuda is just saying completely his own thing. Okay, so Toshma, come here. Rabbi Yehuda says Rabbi Yehuda, paim mechurin, paim she'ein mechurin. Sometimes they're sold, sometimes they're not. My lab, amai dekom Tanakama, Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda is going on the same thing as Tanakama. That meaning, Rabbi Yehuda is talking about when the Rabbi Yehuda is talking about when the donkey is loaded up. Right? As the Rashbam says, Rabbi Yehuda ba'odan olav mayri takatani chamor chazo kelev mechurin. Right? That if he says, as Rabbi Yehuda said that, right, that if he says, sell me this donkey, so then it includes the vessels. So it's talking about where the vessels are on it. And we want to assume that if Rabbi Yehuda is talking about where the vessels are on the donkey, so then oichit, the machlokes between the Tanakama and Nachum Amadi is talking about when the vessels are on the donkey. So Tashma Rabbi Yehuda Omer, paim mechurin, paim she'ein mechurin, my lab, amai dekom Tanakama, koi Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda is talking about the same scenario that the Tanakama is talking about. And if Rabbi Yehuda is talking about where it's loaded up, so then the Tanakama is oichit talking about when it's loaded up. Lo nish. Rabbi Yehuda, milsach risa, Ka'amar, no, Rabbi Yehuda is talking about and under Azach, Rabbi Yehuda is talking about something else. If you're just talking about where the animal is loaded up, you could say that the Tanakama and Nachman Madi are talking about where the animal is not loaded up. Ravina Ravashi says, Ravina to Ravashi, Tashma coming here. Mocher es hakorin, loy mocher es haprodis. So we said in the previous Mishnah that if somebody sells a wagon, he does not. The mules are excluded. V'tani of tachliva by ma'rove kamidu ababo, and of tachliva by ma'rove top for ababo a brisa. Mocher es hakorin, mocher es haprodis. That if somebody sells the wagon, he includes the mules. Oh, I gotta pause the video in a second. V'amalei ha'anan lo macher tanan, and Rabbi Bo says to Rav Tachlif bar Ma'arova, I thought that our Mishnah says that the mules are excluded. Why are you saying the mules are included? V'amalei ismaye. So Rav Tachlif bar Ma'arova says, okay, well clearly this is a faulty brisa. I should delete it from my brain. V'omar lei, and Rabbi Bo says, no, do not delete it from your brain. Tetargem masnischa ba'adukim bo. Say that just explain that your Mishnah is talking about when the mules are attached to the wagon. When the mules are attached to the wagon, then the mules are included. Michla, which implies demasnisin, that our Mishnah, where it says that the mules are excluded, b'she'ein adukim bo, is talking about where our Mishnah is talking about where the mules are not connected to the wagon, and therefore they're excluded from the sale. And if the previous Mishnah is talking about where the mules are not connected to the wagon, well then let's say that our Mishnah, which comes subsequently, is also talking about where the vessels are not on the donkey. Adraba, Emaresha, but wait, no, I'll argue fakir, because if we go back to the first Mishnah of the Perek, it says by a boat, avodim, that the avodim of the boat are excluded, v'loesa antike, not the merchandise. V'aminon my antike, we say, what are the antike? Amar Pape, iska de begava. Papa says the merchandise that is in the ship. So midresha ba'odon olav, and therefore if the Resha is talking about merchandise that's in the ship, well then, Seifa, Nami, Bodon Olav. Well then I'll argue that also, right, by the ship, and the merchandise we're talking about, the merchandise is on the ship, so I'll say that the vessels are on the donkey. So Elatana, Mile, Katani, rather each thing is separate, right? You could say that the merchandise on the ship is on the ship. You could say that the donkey, that the mules and the wagons are separate, and when it comes to the vessels being on the donkey, that could be its own thing. Simin zigam nesan. Amar Abai says Abai. Reb Eliezer, Reb Shimon Gamliel, Reb Meir, Reb Nosson, V'Sumchus, V'Nachman Madi, Kulu Svir Lahu. They all hold ki mizabin inish midei, when somebody sells epis. Ihu v'chotash mishtea mizabin, he sells it and all of its stuff, all of its related stuff. Rabbi Eliezer the Tan, Rabbi Eliezer, as we learned in earlier Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer almost says, Rabbi Eliezer amozer as beis abad, somebody who sells an olive press, mocher sakora, he sells the beam, which is interesting because I thought he was being more machmir in that Mishnah where he said, meaning there we're talking about he sells not just the beam, but the beam and any things that are connected to the ground. Think like the vat and things. But anyways, okay, if you sell an olive press, it includes the beam. Somebody sells the city, mochers a center, he includes the center. We said we had machlokas. What's a center? It's either the guy who knows like all of the borders of the fields, or it's like the fields around the city. Reb Meir says, Reb Meir Omer mochar es if somebody sells a vineyard, he includes also the stuff that you need in the tools of the vineyard. Rav Nosson v'Sumchis bitzis v'dugis. Rav Nosson and Sumchis, they said that I believe included in the sale of the boat are the bitzis and the dugis, right? Let's just confirm. I looked it up earlier, but I guess I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. I'm also in a machar sadugis. Yeah, exactly. We said bitzis and dugises are the same thing. We mentioned David Ben Gurion, when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he went on a dugis to get to the shore. Nachman Madi Adamarin, and Nachman Madi, that which we said that when you sell a donkey, you also, right, the vessels are included. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Paimim Mechurin V'chulei. Rabbi Yehuda says sometimes the vessels are included, sometimes they are excluded. Ma'ishna chamorcha zo, ma'ishna chamorcha hu. So now, why? Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda says sometimes the vessels are included, sometimes they're excluded. Now, I don't know if Rabbi Yehuda necessarily holds like the Rabban, like the Tanna Kama, that the vessels would be just the riding vessels, or like Nachum Hamadi, that they would even be the schlepping vessels. And because he seems to be saying, look, the vessels in general, whether they're included or excluded, depends, right? So mashna chamorcha zu, mashna chamorcha hu. How come when he says chamorcha zu, it includes the vessels? Why when he says chamorcha hu, it excludes the vessels? Amarova says, Rava, chamorcha zo, when he says I'm selling, I want to buy this donkey, yodo de chamra didehu. So Reuven knows that the donkey belongs to Shimon. He knows it's Shimon's donkey. So why does it say, will you sell me this donkey? He knows that it's your, right? Will you sell your donkey? What's this donkey? It means this donkey with all the stuff that's on it. When he says chamor chahu, he doesn't know whose donkey it is necessarily. He doesn't know that the donkey belongs to Shimon necessarily. Is this your donkey? Is this your donkey that I can buy it, or that you will, that you sell it to me? So then, in that case, it's just talking about the donkey. But again, in terms of what the vessels actually are, if is it clear what Rabbi Yehuda holds in terms of, is it riding vessels or schlepping vessels? I don't know. Says the Mishnah, Hamochres achomer, somebody sells a donkey, mochres asiach, ioichit sells the little donkey. Mochres apar lo mochres bino, somebody who sells a cow, the calf is excluded. Mocher ashba, mocher zvala, if you sell a garbage dump, it includes the garbage. Mocher bor, mocher memeh, if you sell a pit, it includes the water. Mocher kaveres, mocher dvarim, if you sell a beehive, it includes the bees. Mocher shevach, mocher yonim, if you sell a dovecote, it includes the doves. In fact, the Gemara Yechidami, what's the deal? How come we say by the donkey, the little donkey is included, and by the cow, the calf is excluded? Well, if the sale is for it and its child, well then who cares if it's a donkey or if it's a cow? It's it and its child. Afilu pare uvna, well then even the cow and the calf should be sold together. Idelo amlehi uvna, and if the sale is not for it and its child, well then afilu chomer nami lo. Well then when you sell Eor, it should only be Eor, not Lior. So Amar Papa says, our Papa, the Amar Le, Chomer maniko fara manika ani mocher loch. Well, it's talking about where Shimon was selling Reuven a chomer manika, a donkey that is producing milk and a cow that is producing milk. So I understand that by a cow, so a milking cow, meaning a cow that produces milk, i.e., right, so that he's not saying I'm selling you the cow and the calf, I'm selling you a cow that you can milk. But by a donkey, what does it mean I'm selling you a donkey that you can milk? No, means a donkey that is nursing a child, i.e., I'm selling you the donkey with the child. How come a baby donkey is called a siach? Because you just call it. You say, "Hey, little guy, ni kimaran," and it comes aran. But once it gets older, it stops listening. Teenagers. Omar Reb Shmuel bar Nachman, Omar Reb Shmuel bar Nachman, Omar Reb Yochanan, Mai Dichsiv. What does the pasuk mean? Al ken yomer amoshlim. So the pasuk says, Al ken yomer amoshlim bo cheshbin tibonim v'sikonin yersichin ni. So al ken yomer amoshlim v'chulei amoshlim elo amoshlim beyitzrom. Hamoshlim is the people who are able to control their inclination. Bo cheshbin bo v'nachsh v'nechoshev cheshbein shel elam. Let's go and make a cheshbin, the big key cheshbin of the world. Hefsid mitzvah keneged schore, v'schar aver keneged hefseda. The cheshbon about, well, if I do a mitzvah, it will cost me this much, but I will gain that much. If I do such and such an avera, I will gain this much, but I will lose that much. So this cheshbon about hefsid mitzvah keneged schara, schar avera keneged hefseda, tibone v'sikonen im ata oseken. If you make such a cheshbon, tibone ba'olam hazeh v'tikonen olam haba, well then you will be built up in this world and established in the world to come. If a person makes himself like this little donkey fellow, that he goes after good speaking, I think this is where it takes a turn for the negative. So if he makes himself like he's very easy to go after, to be enticed and seduced into things. Maksiv achar, what does it say? Ki eish yotza mecheshbin. Oh wait, maybe, no, it's the opposite. Okay. No, well, not the opposite. Meaning it's taking a turn, right? It's saying if you're easily seduced, so it's ki eish yotza mecheshbin v'gomer, teitze eish bi mechashbin v'toichel she'enon mechashbin. Like we learned the other day that there's going to be these sukkahs and there's going to be fires in the sukkahs, and the fires of the tzaddikim are going to eat up those that are not tzaddikim. And a flame from the city of Sichon, Mikiryas Tzadikim, from the righteous, Shenikru Sichin, that they are called Sichin. Ochla er Moyav ze mahalich acher Yitzro ki ayer ze shmalich acher Sichonoi. And this is reference to this young donkey fellow who goes after, he's easily seduced. Baile be'emos arnon. Elugase aruach. I'm sorry. Barley bamos arnon elugase aruach. The Omar Mar holim sheishbo gasus aruach nofel begehenim. Or so barley bamos. So there's people who raise themselves up. They're gase ruach. They would say somebody who has gasus ruach, he goes to hell. Veniram amarosha ein ram. So veniram means that the Rasha says there's no, I guess, God. Over cheshbon shaloylam. So he's not doing the cheshbon of hefsid mitzvah keneged schar and schar ver keneged hefseda. Adivon amar kadosh baruch hu amtin ad sheyovo din, and then let him wait until the judgment comes. V'noshim ad nofach ad shetavo eish sheina tzrichen hipuch, until a wildfire that doesn't need any blowing on, any fanning. Ad medva ad shetadiv nishmoson, till their souls get all bad. Some say until the Eibishter does what he is going to do to these shmendriks. Somebody who separates himself from the words of the Holy Torah, a fire consumes him, as the Bible says, as ponai boem, that I will place my attention, my anger in them. They came away, they went away from the fire, and the fire will consume them. Somebody who separates himself from the words of the Holy Torah, goes to hell, falls into hell. Shneimah Zebaz says, Adam toya miderech haseichel, miderech haskel, v'kal refoim yanuach. If somebody strays from the way of haskel, of enlightenment, I guess, v'kal refoim yanuach, v'en refoim el gehenim. Refoim is gehenim. Shneimah v'lo yoda ki refoim shom, be'imkei she'ol kiru'eho.